I thought I knew my children, but their greed proved to be a bottomless pit, a chasm that swallowed any love they ever pretended to have for me. But they drastically underestimated an old woman who knew exactly how to make a pit out of their own lives. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Sandra Williams, and for 67 years, I had believed in the sanctity of family, in the idea that blood ran thicker than water. I was a widow for nearly a decade, raising my two children, Derek and Ashley, on my own after my dear husband passed. I worked tirelessly as a bookkeeper, pinching every penny, making sure they had what they needed, and often what they wanted. Derek, my son, always had a knack for spending, and when he decided to go into banking, I saw it as a sign he was finally getting serious about finances. I paid off his student loans, a hefty sum, 5 years ago, hoping it would give him a fresh start. Ashley, my daughter, a single mother after a difficult divorce, often struggled, or so she claimed. I helped her with rent, bought her groceries, and often babysat my grandson Jake without a second thought. My life was modest, quiet here in Ohio, centered around my small home and the lingering hope that my children would one day truly appreciate the sacrifices I'd made. But appreciation was a foreign concept to them. Over the years, their conversations subtly shifted. There were always comments, veiled suggestions about me downsizing, about the burden of my old house, about what my estate might look like. It was a slow drip of entitlement that wore down my spirit. My only solace was my lottery habit, a small ritual with numbers that held deep sentimental value. My late husband's birthday, our anniversary, and Jake's birthday. My neighbor Frank would always joke, "Still chasing that dream, Sandra? One of these days, you'll hit it big." I'd just smile and say, "A girl can dream, Frank. A girl can dream." Well, 3 weeks ago, that dream became a staggering reality. My numbers hit, all of them. $333 million in the MegaMillions. After taxes, it was still over $200 million. My first thought, predictably, was of my children, of how I could finally secure their futures, give them the comfort they'd always craved. But then, a cold wave of doubt washed over me. Their past comments, their dismissiveness, the way they took, without ever truly giving back. A thought began to form, a profound character assessment, as I came to call it. I decided to keep my winnings a secret. I had to know, truly know, who my children were without the lure of my money. The plan was simple, yet terrifyingly revealing. I would pose as a financially struggling elder, desperately needing help. My heart medication, I would tell them, had become impossibly expensive. It was a fabrication, of course, but it was a test of their compassion, their filial love. I started with Derek. I called him, my voice trembling, carefully cultivating the sound of an old woman in distress. "Derek, honey," I began, I don't know what I'm going to do. My heart medication, it's doubled in price. I'm barely making ends meet, and I just don't have enough this month. Could you help your old mother out?" There was a pause, a sigh on his end, heavy with exasperation. "Mother," he lectured, his tone condescending, "you know my policy on financial responsibility. You need to manage your money better. There are programs for seniors, you know. I'm a bank manager. For crying out loud, I can't just hand out money. It sets a bad precedent. Have you cut back on your spending, your lottery tickets?" My lottery tickets. He actually brought up my lottery tickets. I tried to interject, to explain, but he cut me off. "Look, I'm busy. You'll figure it out. Just be more responsible." And then he hung up. Not only that, a few minutes later, I discovered he'd blocked my number. My own son blocked me. The phone felt like a stone in my hand, heavy with a new, chilling realization. Next, I called Ashley. My voice, by now, didn't need much feigning to sound distressed. The sting of Derek's rejection was real. "Ashley, darling," I pleaded, "it's your mother. I'm in a bind. My heart medication, it's just so much. I'm scared. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it this month." Her response was curt, Immediate. Mom, you know how tight things are for me. Jake's tuition, my spa appointments, the kids, new designer clothes. I just got a new handbag last week, which wasn't cheap. I can barely cover my own expenses. This isn't my problem. You need to budget better. Have you tried asking Derek? I bit back a bitter laugh. He said he couldn't help. Ashley just sighed. Well then, I don't know what to tell you. I truly can't help. I have to go. Jake's waiting for me to take him shopping. She hung up before I could utter another word. My heart ached, a deep, crushing pain that had nothing to do with any fictional medication. My children, my flesh and blood, had dismissed me, lectured me, blocked me, and abandoned me in what they believed was a moment of true desperation. The tears came then, hot and stinging, blurring the edges of my quiet living room. But amidst the overwhelming sorrow, a tiny ember of hope flickered. There was one more person to call, my grandson, Jake. Jake was 20, a brilliant Ohio State business student on scholarship, working a part-time job to help cover his expenses. He was a good boy, always had been. I called him. This time, my voice wasn't an act. It was genuinely shaky, burdened by the raw disappointment of his mother and uncle. Jake, sweetheart, I began, and before I could even finish my usual setup about the medication, he was already reacting. Grandma, what's wrong? You sound upset. Are you okay? I managed to explain, albeit with more genuine tears, about my fabricated financial struggle. Without a moment's hesitation, without a question about my budgeting or responsibility, Jake said, Grandma, I only have about $500 saved up right now from my part-time job, but it's all yours. And if you need me to come down there, I'll pack my bag and drive the 400 miles tonight. I can be there by morning. Are you sure you're all right? The line went silent as I choked back a sob. $500. His entire savings. And he was willing to drive 400 miles just to check on me. My heart, so recently broken by my own children, swelled with an overwhelming love and gratitude for my grandson. He passed the test. He passed with flying colors. In that moment, the tears stopped, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. My children had chosen greed, entitlement, and callous disregard. I would choose justice, not for revenge, not truly, but to restore balance, to reclaim my life, and to ensure that true loyalty, not opportunistic avarice, was rewarded. The victim inside me withered away, replaced by a strategist, a meticulously planning matriarch. The game had truly begun. My planning began immediately. My first call was not to a financial advisor for my lottery winnings, but to a private investigator. I needed hard evidence, irrefutable proof of Derek and Ashley's true character, their habits, and their intentions. I gave the PI a detailed history, including all the loans I had given them over the years, the subtle manipulations, and the hints they'd dropped about my estate. While the PI worked, I wasn't idle. I found the best estate lawyers in the state, establishing ironclad trusts and accounts that would protect my winnings from anyone not explicitly named. I spent countless hours documenting every single financial contribution I had ever made to Derek and Ashley, every gift, every bill I'd paid, every loan, meticulously recording dates, amounts, and conversations in a series of thick notebooks. I even opened a new, entirely separate bank account, funneling small amounts of money into it, preparing for the next phase. The private investigator's findings began to trickle in, each report a fresh stab to my heart, but each one solidifying my resolve. He confirmed Ashley's extravagant spending habits, expensive spa visits, designer items bought on credit, lavish restaurant meals with her friends, all while complaining to me about her poverty. Derek, the bank manager, was no better. His flashy motorcycle, his expensive tastes, his frequent trips, all financed through what the PI uncovered were increasingly leveraged loans and maxed out credit cards. The PI found records of over $63,000 in past unpaid loans from me that Derek and Ashley had conveniently forgotten about, monies I had transferred directly into their accounts over the years. But the most chilling discoveries were the conversations, The PI had managed to legally obtain recordings and emails that exposed Derek and Ashley discussing my estate, openly speculating about my eventual death, and even researching legal avenues to declare me mentally incompetent or gain control of my assets if I ever became too old to manage my affairs. They had even consulted with a lawyer friend of Derek's about guardianship laws, discussing how to get me institutionalized if I started giving away money willy-nilly. The thought that my own children were plotting such a thing, planning to strip me of my autonomy, sent a shiver down my spine, but it also crystallized my purpose. This wasn't just about money. It was about my dignity, my peace of mind, and my very right to exist independently. To counteract their insidious plots, I engaged not one, but 3 doctors, a general practitioner, a neurologist, and a renowned psychiatrist to conduct thorough evaluations of my mental competency. Each one, independently, declared me of sound mind, fully capable of managing my affairs. These reports were sealed and placed in a secure vault, ready to be presented if their schemes ever moved beyond the planning stage. While I was preparing, Derek and Ashley continued their oblivious dance of entitlement. They never called back to check on my heart condition, not once. Their silence was deafening, further cementing my decision. They simply assumed I'd find a way, as I always had, to solve my own problems. Their continued self-absorption provided a perfect vacuum for me to continue my preparations, unseen and unheard. I also began the arduous process of restructuring my entire estate. My lawyers meticulously drafted a new will, disinheriting both Derek and Ashley, and naming Jake as my sole heir, along with comprehensive provisions for his education and future. Every asset, every penny of my lottery winnings was meticulously accounted for and legally protected. Then came the most satisfying and perhaps the most complex part of my plan, acquiring their debts. Through my lawyers and a few carefully chosen financial contacts, I quietly began to purchase all of Derek and Ashley's outstanding debts from their various creditors. This wasn't easy. It involved navigating complex legal and financial waters, but with a significant portion of my lottery winnings, it was more than possible. Derek owed $78,000 from various personal loans and credit cards, and Ashley owed $89,000, largely from her extravagant lifestyle and various short-term loans. One by one, I became their biggest creditor, effectively making myself their new, unforgiving lender. The terms I would impose would be entirely legal, entirely brutal, and entirely justified. The day came for the confrontation, 3 weeks after my test, which was also coincidentally 3 weeks after I'd bought Jake his new car. I hadn't told anyone about the car, a brand new silver Honda Civic, practical and reliable, chosen by Jake himself after a celebratory lunch. It was a modest gift considering my winnings, but it was a symbol of his worthiness, of my faith in him. I had invited Derek and Ashley to my house under the guise of a family dinner. They arrived, full of their usual self-importance, Derek in a new suit, Ashley with a designer handbag I knew she couldn't afford. Jake was already there, helping me set the table, his face alight with gratitude for his new car. As we sat down, Derek immediately noticed Jake's new car keys on the counter. "What's this, Jake?" he asked, picking them up. "A new car? Where did you get the money for this, Grandma?" Ashley chimed in, her voice dripping with indignation. "Yes, Mother. After telling us you couldn't afford heart medication, you buy Jake a new car? This is financially irresponsible, even for you." Their voices grew louder, a chorus of thinly veiled accusations and moral outrage. Jake, always perceptive, looked between them and me, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. "Grandma," he said softly, was the heart medication a test?" I looked at Jake, then back at Derek and Ashley, who were now sputtering with fury, their faces red. This was my moment. I leaned back in my chair, a calm, almost serene smile on my face. "Yes, Jake," I said, my voice clear and unwavering. "It was. And you, my dear grandson, passed with flying colors. Your uncle and mother, however, failed spectacularly." I then turned my gaze directly to Derek and Ashley. "You want to know where I got the money, Derek? Ashley, you want to talk about financial responsibility?" I paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. I won the lottery 3 weeks ago. $333 million. Their faces went slack, shock morphing into disbelief, then a dawning, greedy comprehension. You won? Derek stammered, his eyes wide. And you didn't tell us? And you tested us? What kind of mother are you? Ashley gasped. All that money? And you let me struggle? You made me think you were poor? Oh, I'm just getting started, I said, my smile hardening. I walked over to a small table I had prepared earlier, laden with neatly organized folders. You see, for years, I've watched your entitlement grow. I've paid your debts, picked up your pieces, and all the while you saw me as nothing more than an ATM, or perhaps a future inheritance. But your plots, your insidious little plans, that's where you truly crossed the line. I laid out the private investigators' reports, the printed emails, the transcripts of their calls. Do you recognize these, Derek? These are your conversations with your lawyer friend, discussing how to declare me mentally incompetent. These are your emails, Ashley, speculating about my estate and how much you'd get. I tapped a finger on a report. And these are your detailed spending habits, the ones you so cleverly hid from me while I was supposedly struggling to pay for your lives. Derek and Ashley stared, stunned, their carefully constructed facades crumbling around them, their faces drained of color as they saw the overwhelming evidence of their deceit, their greed laid bare. The room was thick with their stunned silence. So, I continued, picking up another legal document. Let's talk about the future. Effective immediately, my will has been restructured. Jake, my loyal, kind, and truly loving grandson, is my sole heir. Every penny, every asset, every bit of my fortune will go to him, managed through a trust that will ensure his future security and education. Jake looked at me, tears in his eyes, but a silent nod of understanding. Derek finally found his voice, a strangled, desperate sound. Mother, you can't. We're your children. This is insane. I'll contest the will. I'll prove you're not competent. I merely smiled, holding up the medical reports. I'm afraid not, Derek. I've already had multiple doctors, including a psychiatrist, confirm my sound mental state. Everything is perfectly legal, perfectly ironclad. Then I delivered the final crushing blow. And speaking of legalities, remember those debts you both conveniently forgot about? The ones totaling $78,000 for you, Derek, and $89,000 for you, Ashley? Their eyes widened in dawning horror. Well, I've been busy. I've legally purchased all of your significant debts from your creditors, so now you don't owe them. You owe me. Their jaws dropped. But that's impossible, Ashley stammered. Oh, it's very possible, I affirmed. And as your new lender, I've set some terms. You will both be charged 24% annual interest, compounded monthly. And the full balance of your debts will be due in 30 days. I watched their faces contort with panic. It was a beautiful sight, the greedy finally facing the true cost of their avarice. Failure to meet these terms will result in legal action, asset forfeiture, and professional ruin. The fallout was swift and brutal. Derek and Ashley immediately tried to deny, to beg, to threaten, but my resolve was unwavering. The time for tears and second chances was long past. They tried to appeal to Jake, to manipulate him, but he stood firm by my side, having seen their true colors. Their frantic attempts to scramble for the money were futile. They couldn't come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in 30 days. But I wasn't done. The public shaming I had orchestrated was equally devastating. Derek's friend Mike from the bank had been an unwitting confidant in Derek's plots against me, and when the news of my lottery win and my children's treachery became known, Mike, horrified and disgusted, didn't hesitate to share the details with their professional and social circles. The story, embellished but essentially true, spread like wildfire. Derek's reputation as a trustworthy bank manager crumbled. His bank, keen to protect its image, swiftly terminated his employment, citing serious ethical breaches and financial misconduct. A polite way of saying he was fired for being a conniving, greedy son who plotted against his own mother, Ashley, who had always cultivated a sophisticated image among her friends, found herself ostracized. Her friends, many of whom I had unknowingly also helped out over the years through Ashley, turned their backs on her, disgusted by her actions. The public revelation of their manipulative schemes, their casual greed, destroyed their social standing. As the 30 days drew to a close, their world utterly collapsed. With their debts defaulted, I, as their primary creditor, initiated legal proceedings. They lost their homes, their cars, everything of value. Derek, the former bank manager, ended up washing dishes at Miller's Diner, earning minimum wage. Ashley, who once fretted over designer handbags, now stocked shelves overnight at a grocery store, her hands raw and her spirit broken. Their financial ruin was complete, their reputations shattered beyond repair, their relationships, already strained by their selfish natures, crumbled under the weight of their financial woes and public humiliation. As for me, I found a profound, deep peace. I didn't gloat, for there was no joy in witnessing the downfall of what used to be my family, but there was immense satisfaction in the restoration of balance. I had reclaimed my life, my dignity, and my fortune. I bought a beautiful villa by the sea in Florida, a serene place where I could enjoy the sunshine and the quiet sounds of the waves. Jake moved with me, continuing his studies online and flourishing with the security and love he deserved. He manages his college fund, his living allowance, and has even started a small charity for students struggling with tuition, embodying the true spirit of generosity I had always hoped my own children would possess. He visits his parents occasionally, out of a sense of duty, but the relationship is distant, irreparable. He knows their truth. I often sit on my veranda, looking out at the endless ocean, a cup of tea in my hand. I reflect on the journey, from heart-wrenching betrayal to calculated justice. It wasn't about revenge in the end. It was about defining what family truly meant, about valuing loyalty and kindness over blood ties and entitlement. You can't buy love, but you can definitely put a price on greed. And sometimes that price is everything. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.